Hi, I'm Dwayne from Travel by the Book, where we explore literary travel. Today I'm in Window Rock, Arizona. Window Rock is the capital of the Navajo Nation, and we're here to explore a cool library called the Navajo Capitol Library and the adjacent museum. Before I do, though, I'm checking out this memorial garden that features a memorial to the famous Code Talkers. The Code Talkers were a group of Navajo soldiers in the Pacific arena of World War II. The Japanese found that we're having great success at breaking American military codes. So some Navajo soldiers were enlisted to develop their own codes based on their native Navajo language. This proved very successful. In fact, it contributed to why the United States won the battles there against Japanese in the Pacific. And unfortunately for the Code Talkers themselves, this operation was classified, but eventually that mission was declassified, and today a grateful nation honors their efforts and their intelligence and their bravery. All right, so I am walking up to the Navajo Museum and Library. The architecture of this building is based on the shape and ideas of the traditional hogan, which is the hogan is the traditional home of Navajo people. In one of the galleries here, we have a photo exhibit about the Code Talkers. So it's very appropriate. And I'm here, and I did that introduction. This room behind me is one of the key exhibits in the museum. It holds one of the original one of the original copies of the Navajo Treaty of 1868. This was a treaty that ended forced incarceration of all Navajo people. Even though they celebrate the importance of the treaty, they recognize that over half of the articles in the treaty actually favored the American government and the American settlers, opening up Navajo lands for development and paving the way for ethnic cleansing and for the loss of traditional values and culture. It's an important document and fun to see that they have it and that they have this really handsome way to display it. After exploring the museum, I headed over to the library on the other side of the building. I'm here at the, where am I?
The Navajo Nation Library.
Excellent. And you are?
My name is Donovan Pete. I am the Community Library Manager for this and two other branches.
So I was just over in the museum. Is the library an extension of the museum or vice versa?
We're separate departments, so the museum has their own, being that they're their own group, and then we're basically our own entity as well.
Okay.
Yeah. But of course we all invest into the idea of Navajo Library and Information Science, or Diné LIS as I like to call it. Yeah. So because of the tangible items that they archive as well as document, preserve, we also do that with the intangible. So if we're thinking about intangible, that's kind of things like songs, stories, things like that. So because they don't necessarily have the capacity to hold, like documents or recordings and things like that.
Right. So how do you preserve intangibles?
It's so the interesting part is people have done that for us, especially in so the really big one that we do have is what's called the ONEO, and that was established by Peter McDonald, who was a Navajo chairman back in the late 1980s. And then they actually went around to different parts of the Navajo Nation and they collected stories. And around that time, there was about 80% fluency range for the Navajo language. So just about everybody spoke the Navajo language. And from adults to, the smallest of children, that they strictly spoke Navajo. And in a sense, it was a what they would call monolingual. So that's what we have here. And I think that's been one of the ones that we really cherish because there's a lot of information on there. If we were to transcribe it and get people to translate it for us and help us with it, it could essentially become the encyclopedia for the Navajo people.
So between the 1980s and more recently, you've seen a decline in Navajo?
Yes, I mean, it's not only younger speakers not speaking the language a lot, or even what they would also call language evolution. When you go to school, because the majority of your time growing up is spent at school. And so because of it, that's where you hear it. That's and even around the time in the 80s where where now we think about like, that's not good. That wasn't a good environment to really teach an individual, teach a young person. And then back then, because it would be like, no Navajo, like you can't do Navajo, you can't say it like that, or Navajo is dirty. And so because at some point when you're that young, you're impressionable, and that you get older, you get that mindset that, hey, like maybe Navajo isn't good, or we can't use it. And that's how it's been emphasized to their children that, hey, when you grow up, we don't want to exactly teach you in the language because it's going to disrupt how you think about, doing your schoolwork. Nowadays, we're trying to give our own language a fighting chance. Sure. Maybe the stats might show it might be 40-30% now.
So a large mandate for you is getting internet and access to multiple resources in these rural areas that haven't had them up to now.
Yes.
What about, and how does that play into the likelihood that young people are learning their native language?
So here at the library, we, kind of circling back into it, being that that's our emphasis, that's what we really want to encourage. And of course, taking inventory of what we have for our Navajo language materials, and then also being able to figure out what the copyrights or trademarks are to it, so we can digitize a lot of those and then make it available online. And then trying to find resources like Omeka to create our own little courses, or using Niche Academy to emphasize a lot more language teaching and cultural stories. So things like that we can transmit a lot of this because people are wanting that. Of course, our emphasis still being on Native American and Navajo literature, or books written by indigenous authors.
Right.
Down here, we actually have some Navajo language material, as well as some cultural and language material here. The big one that we do have, of course, is the Young and Morgan dictionaries. So that was done in a span of, I want to say, almost 30-40 years for Robert Young and William Morgan to collect a lot of native Navajo language material, especially Navajo language words, and being able to provide meaning, and then of course to document it in these two dictionaries. And so for just about every word you can think of, it'll be in here. So kind of what we have out there is kind of a glimpse of what we have here, because this is all Native American titles, and of course items that are written from communities or from the native authors. So there goes, all the way over there. And then we also have some materials here.
I'm just slipping over here.
And then so for us, we also have a good amount of Navajo written material. It's kind of a mixed bag on this shelf in particular. So this is,
And do you have authors today writing in Navajo?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, there are definitely a lot of, I would say an explosion of that. There have been more materials that have been printed out that are not only by Navajo authors, but also written in the Navajo language.
Here's another question for you. I just wanted to read a general book about Navajo, just general history. Do you have a recommendation from an authentic perspective?
It would definitely be this book here, Diné, the Navajo creation story. So this kind of helps us understand the stories in here that actually help us understand our view of the world, and then also our connection to both the spiritual world, this type of physical world, and then the worlds that we actually came from. And so this book kind of highlights that, to where if you want to know more about Navajos from our perspective,
Right.
because it's always said that there's the written history, the documented, the things that is kind of more of on the mainstream Bilagana type of way. For us, how we understand the world and what we came from, definitely Diné is how we think about the world. Another really part I like about this collection is also our collection of language material.
Oh, nice.
And so with, once again here with, we also have another, as you see here, the Young and Morgan dictionaries. But there are also other materials that have been written by a group or collective of other Navajo speakers. And so this is kind of all the materials that we do have with the Navajo language. One definitely a really prized possessions that we have here in special collections. And of course, we have here in special collections and can rival any academic library.
Oh, for sure. All right. Well, Donovan, it's been a pleasure hanging out with you and talking and seeing this great space. If you come by, let me know that you found out about it, got excited about watching it on Travel by the Book TV. And now the most important question, though, is where can I find good fry bread in town?
Ooh, that's always, so there's the flea market, and then there's also Quality Inn, because they have their own little dinner restaurant.
Okay, that's where I was going to check out. That's where I stayed last night. It was actually really comfortable, the Quality Inn in town. All right, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
So just outside the museum, they have this traditional hogan. And so now I'm going to order, now I've ordered, and I'm going to get a Navajo taco. Now, if you're not from the Southwest, you might not know what fry bread is, but it's a traditional Indian flatbread that is, to me, one of the most delicious things in the world. If you watched our Literary Buffalo episode, where we go to Buffalo, New York, in search of F. Scott Fitzgerald and Mark Twain and James Joyce, we spend a lot of time eating buffalo wings. Because when you're in Buffalo, you eat buffalo wings. And when you're in New York City, you eat bagels and pizza. And when you're in Window Rock, you eat Navajo taco. I'm Dwayne from Travel by the Book. Keep reading, keep traveling, and keep watching.